Hello, my friends. It's time for a story. A poopy story. A poopy story about how I came into possession of this knife for a short review. So, going back about 15, 20 years ago, I was working my first job out of college, and it was a crappy, low paying job. But I befriended a guy there who had actually gone to college with me. We both majored in physics together, of all things. So we were sitting there being miserable, making like $12 an hour. And we both moved on to bigger and better things. Turned out that we both landed at the same place as our next job within about a month of each other. So he and I became better friends while we were there. He and I are pretty similar, actually. He's just like me. He's pretty nerdy. He's incredibly sexy. So we hit it off. Now, this second job was actually also pretty crappy. We each worked there for a couple of months and moved on to bigger and better things. So my friend, he moved off to the West Coast. I stayed on the East Coast. He ended up getting married and having kids out there. I stayed single and miserable out here for a bit longer. But that's beside the point. Some months or maybe even years after he had moved away, the two of us were texting each other while at work, on the toilet, at the same time. And once we discovered that, we forever knew each other as Poop Brothers. What a beautiful story. So, fast forward a few years, it turns out that he and I are actually pursuing the same hobby. We're both into collecting pocket knives. I think I actually talked him into it. I had started collecting pocket knives while I was in college. I think he had done so well after. Now, this is one of the models that he picked up a few years back. The Spyderco Ikuchi, or as he and I more affectionately call it, the Ikuchi. This is something that I thought was always kind of cool, but I never liked it quite enough to pull the trigger on it. So he offered to send this along for me to take a look at. And being as that he is one of the main reasons I started this channel, I thought it'd be fitting that this would be the first review that I do. So let's get into it. Now, first off, I want to apologize for the appearance of my hands. I spent most of my weekend doing yard work and cleaning, and my hands are pretty chewed up. Don't worry, I don't have any skin diseases. But I don't wear gloves, despite how much my wife yells at me, so I guess I deserve it. Secondly, I'm pretty new to recording videos, so I'm experimenting with the camera settings and the lighting, so please bear with me while I try and figure all of this out. I may try different backgrounds in my other videos, I may try different lighting settings, I may try different camera settings, so we'll see how this one works. So now, let's talk about this knife. Let's start off with the blade. It's about a 3¼ inch. I didn't actually measure it. It's certainly not a big knife, maybe even 3½. I think it just seems smaller because it's not a big knife. You know, this is a really kind of, it's a lightweight, slender gentleman's knife. It's different than what I usually carry. I usually carry something a little bit chunkier. But it's unique and it's cool. And so I think even if you like bigger stuff or stuff that I guess you could call more tactical, I hate that term, you might still like this just for how unique it is. So looking at the blade, you can see it's got this kind of upswept shape. I wouldn't call it Persian, but it does have this very narrow shape, upswept, really nice satin finish. I like the satin finish that Spyderco does over in Taichung. I wouldn't call it a thin blade stock. It's certainly not thick either. It's kind of a medium thickness. Again, I didn't measure it. It's really just a mini review, but I think it works well. it's given that it's so narrow, I think it works that they didn't take it down to an extremely thin edge because it allows it some certain level of robustness where you don't have to really worry about damaging this. You know, it's got a nice pointy tip, but it's not super thin behind the tip here. So I wouldn't worry about any damage to the knife. Not that you would be using this in any kind of hard use scenario. I see this more as something that you'd use for, like, I don't know, cutting a sandwich in the office. You know, it's not something that you're going to take outside and do yard work with or go camping with. This is a gentleman's knife, and I think it works well for that. So the blade, again, it's this, it's an attractive shape, and I think it would work really well for the kinds of light duty things that you would use a gent's knife for. So, like, you know, maybe opening a package of cookies while you're sitting at your desk in the office, or something to that effect. Now, the handle is actually what I like a little bit less about this. So first off, it's a very neutral shape. So I think it's kind of inoffensive for anyone who's going to try and grip it. I personally like it when there's some sort of finger groove here to kind of lock me in. That's one of my biggest preferences when it comes to ergonomics, is to have some kind of finger groove. This does not have that. But again, personal preference. If you like this kind of very neutral handle, then it's going to be fine for you. Also doesn't really have like any kind of real place to put your thumb. Again, doesn't really need it. It's such a narrow handle. I personally see this as kind of like a pinch grip knife. You know, hold it like this, like the same way you would use a kitchen knife. But it's fine. Again, this is a gent's knife. It's not something you're going to be doing a lot of hard work with. You're not going to be holding this for hours on end as you know, chop up a tree or cardboard boxes. It's something you're going to open up once to open a package, and then you'll be using it for about 5 seconds, and you're going to close it back up again. So anyway, back to the handle though. So this is that G10 carbon fiber laminate stuff that Spyderco likes to use on their stuff that they make in Taiwan. I'm not personally a big fan of it. And it's not terrible. You know, I like it more than regular G10, but I don't like it as much as real carbon fiber. It has some texture, which is fine. I just feel like it's a classy little design. And I just failed that. That's because I'm not used to working under a phone. It's a classy little design, and I feel like it would feel a little bit more special if there was a different material on the handle, whether it was like a nicer carbon fiber or like a hardwood or something like ironwood. It would make it more attractive to me. Now, the other thing that a lot of people are going to notice is that this has the Spyderco wire clip on it. And I personally love the Spyderco wire clip. I think it works really well, and I think it looks really nice. I actually like it much more than the standard Spyderco clips in sheet metal. I mean, a lot of people say when you're spending a lot of money on a knife that this seems really cheap, but I actually would prefer to have this over the standard Spyderco clip. And again, you know, for higher prices, some people demand that they get a machined clip. In this particular case, I think that this works just perfectly in terms of the aesthetics and in terms of just the overall kind of lightweight, kind of minimal design of this knife. So I don't really have any issues there. I think this is perfect. The really unique feature about this thing is this, I guess you could call it a flipper wheel. It's not a tab. So it operates just like a flipper tab. It's got jimping on it so you can catch it with your finger. And the blade really rockets out from that. It's quite nice, actually. To be honest, I think it would be cooler to see more knives using a feature like this. The thing that's so great about it is that, I mean, aside from just being kind of unique and looking cool, it doesn't stick out Like, it doesn't disrupt the flow of the lines of the knife as much as a pocket clip would. I mean, not a pocket clip, a flipper tab. It's not going to stick out as much in your pocket. And then when it's in the open position, you know, you don't have it sticking out in here, so you can actually choke up and hold it however you want. So it's a cool, unique feature, and I kind of would like to see it used more often, to be honest. I don't know if there's any reason that this can't be used in other places. I don't know that if there's... I never saw anything regarding like the specific designer for this knife, and that being their specific thing, and no one else can use it. So yeah, I haven't really looked into it though either, I'll be honest. That being said, and it also closes up really nicely. So the blade is flush with the line of the handle here. So in the closed position, this thing is actually, you know, very sleek and slender. So again, fits well with the, I guess, kind of gentleman's knife vibe that this thing has. You know, doesn't take up much space in the pocket. It's relatively lightweight. So if that's your kind of thing, I think you'd like this. Personally, not something I think I would buy, though. Not for me. I think it's well done. It's well made. It's unique. I do like the blade shape. I think the blade looks really nice. But I don't see myself buying this. At least not for my personal tastes and collection. You know, another thing that I forgot to mention here. So, this does have the compression lock, which I do like. It has quite a lot of spring tension on it. And so you'll notice that, and I guess that does help with the strength of the detent, and part of the reason why it rockets out so much. Once you disengage it, the thing drops shut. And I think it's actually on washers. I think you can see them in there. It's on washers, it's not on bearings, so that means that it's really nicely put together in there. I don't know if it has like a bushing in the center like some of the other Spydercos do. I did not disassemble this. But the reason I was pointing that out, that spring tension, you know, if you look in here, there's not a lot of room to get your finger in to disengage the lock. So between that lack of space and the high spring tension, it's kind of hard to get the meat of your finger in there to disengage it. So I actually find I'm kind of using my fingernail to get in there and disengage. A little bit uncomfortable. Doesn't bother me that much. My fingertips are so beat up from years of weightlifting and martial arts and yard work that almost nothing really bothers my hands, and I find very few things uncomfortable unless they're really bad. But I could see that maybe bothering some other people. Sorry, I just had a little interruption here, but I think I'm ready to basically conclude this video. So the Ikuchi here, overall, I think is a pretty recommendable knife for someone who's looking for a gent's knife, something maybe a little bit on the smaller side. Although it's not something that I personally love and think that I will be buying. So now that this is done, I will be sending this here Ikuchi back to my beloved poop brother, Mr. EDC Knife Noob. And hopefully he has enjoyed this first video review of mine, and he can let me know what he thinks of my lighting and camera settings here. Until next time, everybody, stay poopy.